Welcome to today's news on TV9. I'm Ada Show. In today's local news, the annual Hong Kong Festival kicked off last night while the council calls for warranties and new building laws in order to protect owners from leaky homes. And the minimum wage debate revives as inequality gap widens. The Hong Kong Festival kicked off last night with the opening annual concert brought to you by Hong Kong Children's Symphony Orchestra at the Auckland Town Hall. Kay Chow has more.
Hong Kong Festival is back in Auckland to celebrate the 15th anniversary of the establishment of Hong Kong Special Administrative Region. This year the theme is developing young talents, and it makes perfect sense to have the Hong Kong Children's Symphony Orchestra for the festival opening.
We've got a very good young talents, musical talents coming from Hong Kong, and it links very well with our festival theme for the year, which is developing young talents. So obviously following on from this, we've got careers workshop aimed at recent graduates or anyone who's wanting to explore the Asia job market with particular interest in Hong Kong.
Other events like Career Hong Kong and Celebrate Hong Kong is back to provide great insight and networks to anyone interested in working and business opportunities in Hong Kong. The highlight of the festival includes 8 movie screenings lined up in August, so be sure to check out the Hong Kong Festival website and keep those dates free. Kay Chow, 9 News.
New Zealand have erased all memories from last Beijing Olympics and created a major wave at London Olympic women's hockey tournaments this year, beating Australia 1-0. It was the first time in 5 Olympic matches New Zealand have avoided defeat against the most successful side in history. The Samsung Olympic Experience Fan Zone has officially opened at the launch event on Friday 27th of July. Keisha has more to report on what the Fan Zone has to offer.
7 separate screens set up in Takutai Square. The long-time sponsor of the Olympics, Samsung, is keen to bring the highlights and best moments of the Olympics to New Zealanders.
We've got displays outside on the lawn. We've got the ability to send messages to the Olympic team in London. We've also got a big screen up there where we can watch the live games, watch all the medal moments and highlights of the Olympics, and hopefully people get involved.
Ways to engage with the games just never cease, as there will be live coverage in the atrium 24/7, and an outdoor screen measures 33 square metres will be projecting onto the side of the building every night from 7 p.m. to 12 a.m, so you won't miss the action. With boards to monitor Olympic progress and the technology to communicate to the New Zealand athletes, there are plenty of reasons to get down there and get involved. Kay Chow, 9 News.
Christchurch and Wellington councils are calling for the government to introduce a mandatory warranty scheme to protect homeowners and local authorities against leaky homes and other shoddy building work. But Auckland Mayor Len Brown says councils cannot provide guarantees on quality of building. Chrissy Zhao has more.
The Building Amendment Bill is before Parliament, and Christchurch and Wellington councils have each made submissions to a select committee calling for a mandatory warranty scheme to be put in place. A scheme like that would seek to avoid another leaky home crisis that crippled the country for much of the last decade with a staggering price tag of $22 billion and see the building industry more accountable for its work. Auckland Council says it's joining other councils for the call.
Well, that will be for Local Government New Zealand to really lead through on behalf of all councils of New Zealand, and we'll certainly be a part of that. But, you know, it's something that we can't, as a council, provide. We can't guarantee the quality of building. We have a legal obligation to ensure that we provide or see provided a code compliance certificate, but beyond that we can't give guarantees.
The building law reforms will make builders prove their qualifications when they are contracted to work, and they would have to fix any defects within a year. The leaky home crisis was blamed in part on poor building standards and inadequate inspections by local authorities, but Auckland Mayor Len Brown says there's a limit to what councils can do.
Anyone who's buying a home now would be very wise indeed to, particularly if it's a new home, to put a building guarantee in place. And if it's an old home, you can't get anyone to guarantee an old home. And so, you know, that's a question that you'd have to put to the government, because we certainly can't.
A report prepared for the government in 2008 estimated 42,000 buildings were affected by the leaky home crisis, as well as disclosure of qualifications and a time frame for remedial work to be completed. Other changes proposed under the building reforms include written contracts for work over $20,000 and a raise to $200,000 for maximum penalty on building consents. Christy Zhao, 9 News.
Labour MP David Clark has drafted a bill to raise the minimum wage to $15. This comes the cost of living continues to rise, putting huge pressures on low-income earners and social services like the Auckland City Mission. Christy Zhao reports.
The Auckland City Mission holds major fundraising appeals every winter to raise money for its services. But this year the organization is $100,000 behind its target, and it's under enormous pressure as more people are coming through the door looking for help. Missioner Diane Robertson says traditionally only a small percentage of people live in poverty, and society was able to sustain them. But as the inequality gap is growing larger, even the donors are getting toward crunch time.
So it's right through from individual donors who are finding that their power bill is bigger. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find their rate bills are bigger this week, to businesses, small businesses who traditionally have given us some money and given us some help. A lot of those small businesses are just struggling to stay afloat, right through to large businesses.
Labour has proposed to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, something Robertson says she agrees in principle, as the current rate at $13.50 clearly does not meet people's needs. But she also says a balance needs to be struck.
But a large proportion of people in New Zealand are employed by small businesses who themselves are finding it really, really tough, and they don't have any capacity to increase wages. So obviously we either got to increase production or we've got to decrease the cost to businesses so that they can employ more people and pay more.
But MP David Clark's bill will have its first reading in Parliament in a month's time. The national government has already said it will not support it. Christy Zhao, 9 News.
The Waitangi Tribunal has urged the government to delay its planned sell-off of state assets until a claim over Maori water rights has been resolved. It said selling shares in state assets before the tribunal delivered its full findings could cause a significant disadvantage if the claims were subsequently found to be well-founded. As a result, the status quo should be maintained and the Crown should not proceed with asset sales until the tribunal had completed its reports into the issue in September. From this week, households in Auckland will start receiving new rates bill under the Super City single system. Many are bracing for more than an 8% increase, while others will be able to pay a little bit less. Mayor Len Brown says it's all part of the amalgamation process, but some councillors hold a critical view. Christy Zhao reports.
Auckland Mayor Len Brown held one of his mayor-in-the-chair session in a shopping mall yesterday, talking to passers-by concerned about everything from upcoming rates bills to the increasing cost of living. The mayor waxed lyrical about his pet project, the City Rail Link, and he made it clear that funding options for the project will not include rates increases above and beyond the rate of inflation. But new bills coming through the mail from this week will see more than 250,000 households endure an 8.1% increase in rates, although another 187,000 households will see an average decrease of 4.9%.
So we've brought together all the rates into one rating system. So a rate increase above 3.6 or under 3.6 is purely as a consequence of the amalgamating of the rates.
But Councillor Christine Fletcher says the new system is unfair and unacceptable.
We had the opportunity to use the UAGC and raise that a little bit higher so that everybody paid a little bit more. I don't think it's satisfactory that we've got a situation where we've got winners and losers, and the people in the central part and the eastern part and the northern part of the city clearly are the losers in this situation.
Brown says amalgamation is a must because Aucklanders have united as one under the Super City banner, something Christine Fletcher also agrees, but she says she is still concerned about the city's growth path as it relies on too many assumptions and leaves little wriggle room. Christy Zhao, 9 News.
Record number of visitors this year at the Auckland Zoo. Our reporter heads down to the zoo and finds out what may be the cause of this.
Aucklanders as well as domestic and international visitors are flowing through the gates at the Auckland Zoo. In the 12 months ended 30th of June, Auckland Zoo has experienced the busiest year ever with over 710,000 visitors.
I think that here at Auckland Zoo we can give international visitors a window into all of the rest of New Zealand. We've got all of the iconic habitats here in New Zealand in the zoo that people can visit and come into and get a sense of the wonderful and unique nature of New Zealand.
Last year, September, the zoo has opened the award-winning precinct Te Waonui, and it has been the major attraction for visitors domestically and internationally.
They must come to Te Waonui, they must come and see. This is probably your best chance of seeing a kiwi here behind me in the night forest. The extraordinary animals of New Zealand, the sense you can get of the different types of environments in New Zealand, from the coast to the forest to the high country, all of that you can get a flavour of here at Auckland Zoo.
The addition of Te Waonui has paved the way up for Auckland Zoo's reputation. Now it is a must-do item on the list for Aucklanders and visitors. Apart from the world-class habitats, exciting events are also planned all year round to enhance the zoo experience every school holidays. Kay Chow, 9 News.
Now moving on to upcoming events, get to know your performers, a personal insight into one of the most hardworking entertainment industry.
A different highlight shines on the Circus this week. This is the second tour with a brand new show with international actors and breathtaking acrobats. 19-year-old Jake Chen, a motorcycle stuntman and juggler, has been with the circus for 8 years and would not trade his life for any other.
I feel like my family. The more audience, the better.
All the performers come from different parts of China and train on average 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, much like a typical school day. Despite the physical demands, the actors feel a sense of happiness. This year's youngest performer, 13-year-old Cassie Din, admits to getting tired and weary during practice, but likes being a part of the circus.
I like the circus, so I can travel.
This is Din's first year performing after training for 4 years, and words don't serve justice for her amazing flexibility and talent. Circus will round up their last shows in Manukau this weekend and perform their first show in the North Shore Thursday. Amy Chair, 9 News.
Now we have our TV9 host from Asia Focus, Julie Nixon, to comment on the benefits of statistics.
In 1905, the All Black Robert Deans grounded the ball over the line for a try against Wales. But a try was not awarded because the referee arrived on the scene after a Welsh player had pulled the ball back into the field of play. At the That's the View, Deans expressed in a telegram sent to the Daily Mail in London a day after the match. The incident has gone down in history as the try that never was. Whether he scored or not, we'll never know. There was no official on the spot, and in those days there was no TV. But in 2007, when New Zealand surprisingly lost to France in the Rugby World Cup quarter-final, the match was televised around the world. Once again, the venue was Cardiff. To say that many All Blacks supporters felt robbed by the 1820 loss is an understatement. So it shouldn't be a surprise that Graham Henry has admitted in his new book that he wondered whether match fixing was to blame for the result. At the time, many of those watching the match were thinking the same thing. In the book, Henry says he pressured the New Zealand Rugby Union to push for an International Rugby Board inquiry into the matter. This has prompted verbal abuse from the likes of British rugby writer Stephen Jones, a long-time critic of New Zealand rugby. Jones described Henry's comments as a puke-making assault on Wayne Barnes, the English referee. Henry has also copped flack in the New Zealand media that he will regret his comments and that they will be badly received internationally. In the 5 years since the event, Henry has publicly remained silent. Indeed, he's even been awarded an International Fair Play trophy for his exemplary attitude after the shock defeat. But now he says he's become physically sick after reviewing the video of the match because Barnes missed 40 penalties. He says the All Blacks didn't get a penalty for the last 60 minutes of the game and were on attack for 70% of the time. That's impossible, he says, but it wasn't impossible on that particular day. In this match, the unpredictable French had become the most disciplined team in the history of international rugby. Unlike that try against Wales over 100 years ago, this time the decisions made by Wayne Barnes can be scrutinised just by replaying a recording of the match. So while Henry's comments are controversial and less than diplomatic, at least he's telling the truth, and he's got statistics and TV footage as backup.